Hello, doll friends. This is Michael Kanadas with the Grovian Doll Museum and Carmel Doll Shop. Here we are again with our ongoing perusal of the masterworks of Jules Nicolas Steiner. Those of you that are following us on Facebook, the Grovian Doll Museum, if you're not following us, you really should be. We are having a whole month of celebration of the dolls of Jules Nicolas Steiner. These presentations work with those posts. Those have a lot of very interesting information and interesting photography. So if you're following them, we are now getting to the point of the aftermath of the Franco-Prussian War, and we're getting to the point that the heads and bodies are made all in-house by Jules Nicolas Steiner's firm. And now we're getting to marked dolls and organization. So we're going to start today with something that I think particularly new collectors need to know. There's no reason that you should know these things, but they're not really taught that often. So we're going to start with Series A Steiners, because we're getting to the marked pieces, and obviously A would be the beginning of the alphabet. So what we have here today are two Series A Steiners. Both of them are fully marked. What is very interesting is one is 28 inches and one is 10 inches. So you can see the range in size of dolls. That being said, they are not the smallest or the largest. The smallest would be approximately 7 inches, and the largest would be 40 inches. And both of those types of dolls are very rare and hard to find. By the way, these are hard to find, period. I want you to study the face, and I want to show you something about the manufacturing of these dolls that's very unique. So, in other videos, we've talked about the bodies. This is basically, they both basically have the same body type, which is the jointed, straight-wristed body with the banana fingers. Then we've talked about, in past videos and also in the Facebook presentations, how the bodies are made. And one thing that's very unique about a Steiner is they have, rather than cork paints, they have papier-mâché paints. And here you can see one. You can really, in this, you can see it is very much, in this case, very much like the papier-mâché that we all worked on in school. Like, this is almost paper bags. The top part is purple, but the inner is just, they used what they had. Now, what I really want to show you today is the difference in how the heads were manufactured. So we're going to, I'm going to move the little one out of the way so nothing happens to her. But this big girl, this is what we would call a pressed bisque head. The Germanic doll makers, even at this period, were working with poured. So visualize, poured would mean a liquid that they would pour it into a mold, and they would give it a certain amount of time and it starts to harden and solidify. Pressed bisque means taking like a very wet pie crust dough, rolling it out, and then you are going to take the pie crust and then try to, and I mean really, try to get it into this mold. So they would take it and then they put it in the mold and then they would press it in. Now, those of you that are new at collecting, if you've spent a lot of time looking at reproduction dolls, which I think reproduction dolls are a wonderful thing to start with and to play with and to have, but there are going to be things in real dolls, real antiques, that can't be duplicated. For instance, you're going to have Squiggles. Here's a perfect example of a squiggle. Remember, when they're pushing it into the head, you're going to have air pockets, and it's going to create a little space that when it's fired, it's going to create a squiggle. You can see around the ears, there's little tiny, they're not cracks, but they're little, again, air pockets. These are things that you're only going to get in the real thing. And trust me, every single one of them has it. They all have them, if they're genuine. Now, I want to show you something, because this is really important to see. So, there's a difference between a reproduction, an artist doll, and a fake and a forgery. This doll falls into the fake and forgery classification. It's got quite a few things wrong with it. You can see that whoever put this together found an old body and put the doll on the old body. It is a French body. However, it has nothing to do with the Steiner company. Now, whoever did this was a fairly good painter. I think they did a very nice job. And they had no intention of telling us who they were. They've even signed it. These signatures that you see, these were done by the painter. And there was a very prolific painter in the Steiner company that signed most of their pieces. So someone has copied that. Now the giveaway is, for me, besides some of the paint colors just a little off, the giveaway is, this is a poured bisque head, which they did not use. So if you put your fingers in it, it's very smooth. It's almost porcelain-like, like a porcelain cup. And then when you tap it, it has a dead sound to it. It doesn't have the life that the real ones have. Now, another thing that they did to be a complete faker is they did the trick that people do, which is put a candle inside the head to dirty the head up. You can see that if you blew a candle out, that's what it would. It's a very unnatural bit of dirt. It just wouldn't land just here. And then you can also see the candle wax inside of it. But the main thing is, this is a poured bisque head. It is not a pressed bisque. You want your, by 1873, 75, you want all of your Steiner heads to be pressed bisque, not pour. Now, some of the earlier pieces, you could have pouring in the heads. That's because there's most likely a Germanic connection, meaning Steiner was getting his heads supplied from other suppliers. But by the time we were making our dolls, they are all in the pressed bisque. Now I'm going to show you something just to tell you how far. I'm not going to go into this doll because she's out of order in what we're doing. But here we have the later end of the Steiner. This is the end of the road for the Steiner company. This is an open mouth doll. They did open mouth dolls very early, but this is the era where we really are at the open mouth phenomenon of doll collecting. So this is a pressed bisque head. By this time, you can see it. By this time, say for instance, the Jumeau company is exclusively pouring their heads. That's by the Tete Jumeau period, they started pouring their heads because it was efficient, saved labor, saved materials. Steiner's still pressing their heads, even this at the end, really the end of their company. Now, here's what I want you to put. If you put your hand in here, it feels like a very fine emery board. Sometimes it's not like a fine emery board. Sometimes it's very, very rough. Another thing you want to look in authentic heads, you see that mark right there? That is done with a little wire. And you'll find it in Steiner heads and Chameau heads. That's how they test. Is it ready? Is it ready to go into the kiln? Has it sat long enough? And they just would take a little wire and test it. Now again, I was talking about little flaws that you're going to find in a pressed bisque head. This is just a seam line, but because of the force of getting the material into the head, you have these little pockets. They didn't sand it down because it wasn't an issue. And you'll find them. There's another one here. These are things that you're going to find in a real doll, the real antique doll. And then the test. It has a completely different sound. I know people think I'm abusing this doll, but I'm not. It has a life to it that the poured bisque just does not. So I think that when you're out looking, I mean, I know that we're so fortunate in these times to have so many resources to find dolls that we didn't have in my day when I started out. But I was very lucky to have Jane Coleman shared with me the whole concept of pressed bisque versus poured bisque and where it fit into history. And this can save a lot of heartache because, you know, you might really fall in love with the reproduction doll, and there's nothing wrong with that, but you don't want to be buying an antique doll and find out it's a reproduction. That's not a nice feeling. So I think that this is something that's really important to learn about the Steiner Company and feel it. You're going to have it, you know, if you have a real one and it's particularly nice and smooth, it could be absolutely okay. It just depends on how the material went in. But you're mostly going to have this little roughness when you're looking at the piece. Anyways, I hope you enjoy this installment. Follow us on YouTube and follow us at the Grovian Doll Museum on Facebook. Bye-bye, doll friends.